No.
Huh?
Well, over to the left.
Okay.
Need a photographer? Yeah, sure.
Thanks. Thanks.
So where'd you guys go off to all dressed up this morning?
Oh, church, Easter services.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice. What did your pastor preach about this morning at this church service?
I'm sorry?
You know, what was the sermon about?
Oh, Jesus.
Uh-huh.
You know, how he conquered death, right? You know.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and he gave us, life
Uh-huh.
abundantly.
Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. Hey, you didn't think my wife and I need to hear about that this morning? That wasn't on your radar? No? Say cheese!
When I was a freshman in high school, that's my yearbook photo there, I tried out in the fall for the soccer team, and I got cut. Ouch. Trying to console me, the coach said, if I could have one more guy, Mark, it would be you. That didn't help, not at all. I was devastated by not making the soccer team. But then someone I knew invited me to try cross country. I accepted the invitation and I tried it out, and I was hooked. I loved running cross country. I loved the people. I loved the competition. I loved the atmosphere around it. Running cross country became one of the best experiences of my time in high school. I absolutely loved it. Invitation changed my life. When I first started attending Sycamore Creek many years ago, I was invited to be part of a small group that was reading a book together. And in that group, I confessed some serious harm that I had caused, that I was beating myself up about. I powerfully encountered God's mercy and forgiveness. Now that encounter with God led to more and more engagement with Sycamore Creek Church and with following Jesus. And I wanted more of God, and I wanted to help others encounter God too. And well, this won't be true for many of us, but for me, that invitation to a small group eventually led to me becoming a pastor. Whoa. In all sorts of ways, it's true that invitation changed my life. Here's the main point for today. Invitation has the power to transform lives. Now, if you pause and you consider the really meaningful things that have happened in your life, I'm confident we can tie it in somehow with an invitation. Now, this isn't all that groundbreaking or surprising because invitation is a part of life. Your first date somehow came about through invitation. Someone had to make the first move. Your friendships somehow developed through invitation. You started your friendships by doing something together. Experiences like sporting events and concerts and amazing trips, well, they were likely the result of an invitation. Invitation is a part of life. It's what we do naturally, and invitation has the power to transform lives. Now, often when we invite someone to something, it's because we have that person's interests in mind. We're inviting them into a relationship or into an experience or into an opportunity. And well, today we're going to take this idea of invitation and we're going to apply it to inviting people to participate with the church, particularly through an invitation to Easter next week. An invitation to participate with the church is an invitation to encounter God. Let's pause here to reflect on invitation. I've shared some of how invitation has impacted me, but what about you? Here's our first question for discussion. What is an example from your life of the impact of invitation that produced a relationship or an experience or an opportunity, whatever it might be? Let's take a moment and let's talk about that. Today, I'm giving you a single message that's not part of a series. It's a single message that will bridge the series we just finished, A Perfect Love, with the series we'll start next Sunday on Easter, Costly Grace. Now, as we have been for a while now, we're continuing to use Jesus' famous Sermon on the Mount as a starting point for our messages. Matthew writes a brief introduction to the Sermon on the Mount, saying, "One day, as he saw the crowds gathering, Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down. His disciples gathered around him." Again and again in the accounts of Jesus' life in the Bible, we see people gathering around Jesus. We see people coming to Jesus. They're coming to Jesus because they're curious. They're coming to Jesus looking for answers. They're coming to Jesus for healing. They're coming to Jesus looking for something better. They're coming to Jesus unsure of what they'll find. They're coming to Jesus desperate. They're coming to Jesus. And then through Jesus, again and again, people encountered God and their lives were transformed. And now what do people do with that transformation? Well, they go and they tell someone else. And more people gather around Jesus and their lives are transformed. And they go and they tell someone else. And well, here's the thing, invitation has the power to transform lives. Now today, the church is made up of people who have and who are and who want to encounter Jesus. And putting together this group of people, the church, with the idea of invitation. An invitation to participate with the church is an invitation to encounter God. Now, we'll get some practical tips today for invitation to encounter God through the church, but I want to first remind us about the power of an encounter with God to change lives. We started with Jesus getting ready to give us the Sermon on the Mount, and that's in the New Testament of the Bible, and there are plenty of places I could explore together with you in the New Testament that illustrate invitation. But I've been missing the Old Testament as we focus on the Sermon on the Mount. So I'm going to use Matthew 5 and people gathering around Jesus to bring us back to the Old Testament and this prophet named Isaiah. The prophet Isaiah prophesied about invitation, an extraordinary invitation to encounter God that gets better and better the closer we look at this invitation. So here's the invitation from Isaiah. Is anyone thirsty? Come and drink, even if you have no money. Come, take your choice of wine or milk. It's all free. Come to me with your ears wide open. Listen, and you will find life. I will make an everlasting covenant with you. I will give you all the unfailing love I promised to David. This invitation from Isaiah was made thousands of years ago. And in order to more fully appreciate this invitation from Isaiah, let's take a little look at the historical context for Isaiah. The people of God, the Israelites, had really all but been destroyed. They'd been conquered. They were oppressed. They were the underdog. They were desperate. They were hopeless. They were helpless. And they were utterly defeated and downcast. Now, maybe some of you can relate to feeling that way today. And if you're feeling that way, I'll just tell you, I have compassion for that. And God does too. Because in this helpless, depressing situation for the Israelites, Isaiah speaks in verse 1. Is anyone thirsty? Come and drink. Even if you have no money, come, take your choice of wine or milk. It's all free. To the Israelite people in captivity and to those in deep, gut-wrenching need, this is a powerful invitation. It's an invitation to come and drink. And in your status, well, it doesn't matter. How together you have it, it doesn't matter. The invitation is to just come and be satisfied. It's an invitation to those who thirst for something better. And yet, did you notice that this offer in Isaiah, it doesn't involve water? I don't know about you, but I'd expect water. But what Isaiah points us toward is more than water. It's excessive. It's abundant. Imagine that I invite you to eat a sandwich with me. And you agree, you like a sandwich. And then I offer you a free 11-course banquet. Whoa, I would hope that would exceed your expectations. I mean, you're expecting just a sandwich, and instead I offer an upgrade to an extravagant and fulfilling multi-course meal. That's the invitation of Isaiah. I still remember the first time I visited Glacier National Park in Montana. I was invited to go there with some friends, and we drove through an early September snowstorm to get into the park. We could hardly see anything when we arrived because it was snowing so hard. And that made the beauty all the more breathtaking when we woke up to sunshine the next day. You see, I expected an invitation to experience a sandwich worth of beauty at Glacier National Park, and I got an 11-course banquet of beauty. It was excessive. It was abundant. That's the invitation of Isaiah. And yet Isaiah is so real because even thousands of years later, Isaiah faced a challenge that we still face today with invitation. The audience that God is extending an invitation to is a tough audience. They're hurting. They're weary. They need convincing. So it's as if God is pleading with them. Come to me with your ears wide open. Listen, and you will find life. I will make an everlasting covenant with you. I will give you all the unfailing love I promised to David. The Bible continually connects our choices with our consequences. When we turn away from God, when we turn away from love and justice and truth, well, God lets us experience the consequences of those actions. And those consequences, they can be really painful. They can cause great harm to us and to others. And well, those consequences led to the exile of the Jewish people. Throughout the Old Testament of the Bible, but particularly during exile, there are moments where God's people were in torment and in agony because they could not hear or sense God. It felt like God was silent or absent. Maybe you've experienced something like that yourself. Life can be incredibly difficult in those moments or seasons when God seems absent. Yet here in Isaiah, those days are over. Now there's an avalanche of words from God. God is pleading that they will listen to God's words. God is offering God's people a chance to have their hearing restored, that they may listen to God's word again. God's words offer life, and even more than that, life in abundance. It's an 11-course meal of abundance. It's the beauty of glacier abundance. God provides an invitation. Come to me, listen. And then God reminds God's people of an old promise. I will make an everlasting covenant with you. I will give you all the unfailing love I promised to David. Now, the promise to David was to love him, to never forsake him, and to be faithful and merciful to him. And it was an old promise. Hundreds and hundreds of years had passed since it was first made. And God says that although some that may have forgotten about it, the promise still remains. It's still there. It's an everlasting covenant, one that has not ended even through exile. God's promise is still on offer to God's people. So who are God's people? Well, I skipped over this pretty quickly back in verse 1, who all is invited. Let's go back to it. Anyone who is thirsty. What this means is that God's invitation is for everyone. God's invitation way back in Isaiah in the Old Testament is not based on nationality or geography or status. There's only one criterion for God's invitation. It's an invitation to those who thirst. It's an invitation to everyone. Jews, Arabs, Americans, Canadians, Mexicans, Democrats, Republicans, young, old, single, married, adults, children, every nation, every race, every sexuality, every gender. If you are thirsty, you're invited to come and drink. Isaiah is paving the way for an Easter invitation to an encounter with the risen Jesus. Let's gather to encounter God together. And where does this invitation to an encounter with God lead? There's a transformation. Isaiah continues, let the wicked change their ways. That's each of us. And banish the very thought of doing wrong. Let them turn to the Lord that he may have mercy on them. Yes, turn to our God, for he will forgive generously. The invitation to transformation through and by God is still offered today. Earlier this year, I led a small group that read and discussed The Power to Change. It's the book that pairs with the series we did in January at Sycamore Creek. And one of my favorite parts of that group was when at the very end, we shared our takeaways from our time together. And one person shared that their takeaway is that transformation is about becoming more and more like Jesus. It's about embodying God's love. Now, there were many other takeaways from that group that resonated with me. And they reminded me that turning to God, and in this case, through this small group about habits, is transformative. Now, I've shared with you some of my thoughts on invitation from Isaiah. Let's pause and let's take a moment to reflect on this invitation from Isaiah. So here's our next question for discussion. What do you notice about the beginning of the invitation from Isaiah? And just to remind you, here's that invitation. Is anyone thirsty? Come and drink, even if you have no money. Come, take your choice of wine or milk. It's all free. Let's take a moment and let's talk about that. Again, the invitation to transformation through and by God is still offered today. Which brings us back to the New Testament, where we see through the person of Jesus, God in the flesh, an invitation from God to come to me. Jesus invites us to come to him and be forgiven. Jesus invites us to come to him and to be freed. Jesus invites us to come to him and to be healed. This invitation from God, highlighted in Isaiah and made clear through Jesus, is extended to us today. Come to God and be transformed. The invitation has the power to transform lives. Now, our own personal transformation through encountering God brings us back to inviting people to church. Research on invitation has suggested that the people around us, they really appreciate being invited. People like to be invited. Even if they turn you down, they still like to be invited. And the people who are most likely to accept an invitation from you, well, they're first of all your family members, and then your friends and your neighbors. So as you ponder invitation today, and when we connect it with the church and this encounter that we can have with God, I want to remind you that the most powerful invitation involves relationships. Invitation is relational. You know someone who needs to know more about God. You know someone who needs to know the love of God shown through Jesus. You know someone who is thirsty for life. They just need an invitation. So let me give us a few quick tips here for inviting someone to encounter God through Sycamore Creek. My first tip is to start with prayer. Prayer is the most important place to start because prayer is itself an invitation. It's an invitation to recognize the importance of God and the power of God. And prayer invites God to lead us in the process of invitation. Let God provide the opportunities. You be ready to take them. Prayer leads to all sorts of opportunities for invitation. The video I showed before the message, well, it's meant to be awkward, and it is awkward because the man having his family's picture taken by a neighbor, he hadn't put any thought into inviting his neighbor to Easter. Now imagine how different that scenario would have played out if that guy had been praying for his neighbor. He wouldn't have been surprised at all when the neighbor expressed an interest in church. Pray. And then let God provide the opportunity. You be ready to take them. Prayer recognizes that what we're inviting people to do is we're inviting them to encounter God as described in Isaiah 55. That prayer takes the focus off of us and whatever agenda we might have, or it helps us remember in the midst of this that invitation is really all about an encounter with the God who gives life. Pastor Tom shared a story with me about a couple in his neighborhood when he lived in Holt. Tom was praying for an opportunity to invite them to Sycamore Creek. Now, the couple eventually had a baby, and Tom brought some food over to them. And while dropping off that food, the new mom mentioned to Tom that she had noticed that Tom had been posting on social media about this dad night out group that he was leading. And she wanted to know more about that group because, well, her husband was now a dad. Pray. Let God provide the opportunity. You be ready to take them. You see, Tom never even had to bring up Sycamore Creek. The opportunity for invitation just presented itself, and Tom was ready. That's God at work through prayer. A second way of inviting people is to post on social media. Now, we spend a lot of time on our social media feeds. A lot of time. I'll tell you, it's kind of scary, isn't it? How they can just suck you in, and all of a sudden you've spent 30 minutes looking at reels, and where did the time go? One simple way that you can invite is to share the good things that God is doing for you in your social media feed. If you're excited about something, if something is meaningful to you, if you're changing for the better in some way, share it. Make it personal. Tell your experience. Tell your story. Your experience matters. Now, if that level of personal sharing is hard for you, and I get that, a much easier way that you can invite through social media is to share content or events from Sycamore Creek. We offer video content on YouTube. Have you checked it out? It's great stuff. We offer content through podcasts on places like Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Have you checked it out? It's great stuff. Use that content or the events that we've created on social media to invite people to join you encountering God this Easter. You can post a podcast or a video and share why it was meaningful to you. You can use a podcast or a video to highlight the messages at Sycamore Creek and mention in your post that you're inviting people to join you for Easter next week. You can share the Easter event that we've created for all of our different campuses. Share the one that you'll be attending and invite people to join you for that event. And a final way of inviting through social media is to simply post a worship selfie with a hashtag of SCCMI. Those worship selfies, they matter. They make a difference. We hear again and again from people who come to check out Sycamore Creek because someone they know posted a selfie during worship. Pray, post on social media, and invite, pick up, and bring. I'll tell you, this is the most powerful way to invite someone to church because it involves a relationship. It involves an offer to help them to navigate a new social situation. Invite people to church services and events, yes, and offer to help them navigate a new social situation by picking them up and bringing them, or meeting them in the parking lot, or having them text you when they enter the building, or whatever it might be. Help them to navigate their new experience. The invite, pick up, and bring, it isn't always literal, although I guess it could be. The idea behind this is to host the people you invite. Now, I recently visited Chicago with my family, and we went to a restaurant we'd never been to before. And it's amazing when you enter a new space, all the things that you have to navigate in a new space. So at this restaurant, I had to figure out, do you seat yourself or do you get seated by someone? Do you pay your server or do you have to go up to a counter or somewhere to pay? Where are the bathrooms in this place? There's an assault of new things to figure out. And all those things would have been so much easier to figure out if I had been with someone who knew what they were doing. Now, and even without that experience of someone knowing what they're doing, it was really helpful to navigate the new experience together with my family, with other people. You see, navigating new experiences, including an experience with Sycamore Creek, it's so much easier with a friend. The helpfulness of going through a new experience, especially this is true, the more we inhabit online spaces. More and more, we have weaker muscles when it comes to social interaction and navigating new situations. It can be daunting to face all these new people and all these new rituals and these new spaces, and navigating all of those new experiences, including an experience with Sycamore Creek. It's so much easier with a friend. Host the people you invite. Let me script out for you one way you might do this. I might reach out to my friend. We'll call him Steve. So Steve, I send Steve a text message. I'm really excited about the Easter service this Sunday at my church. I'd love to experience it with you. The service is at 10:30 a.m. Are you interested in joining me? Now imagine I wait for a little bit. I see the little dots show up and Steve texts back, yes, I'm interested. Yes. So then I text back Steve, great, let's meet at the church. It's at 105 North Church Street. That's Potterville's campus at 10:25 a.m. Text me when you arrive and I'll meet you in the parking lot. Steve responds, sounds good. See you on Sunday. So on Sunday morning, Steve arrives and he texts me. So I go out to the parking lot, I greet him, and from there we enter the church building together. Now along the way, I pause to introduce Steve to people who I think he might connect with. I have knowledge, and I use that knowledge about the people that we meet in the space where we worship and the things that we do in our service to help Steve feel more comfortable and connected with Sycamore Creek. And because we have chat questions during worship, I know that I'll have time during the service to process our experience together with Steve. I'll have the opportunity to notice things and to ask questions and to reflect with me. We hear again and again from guests of Sycamore Creek how helpful it is to have breaks during the service to pause and to reflect and to connect with people around them through the chat questions. Now, we've provided Post-it notes with invite, pick up, and bring on them to help us remember to do this, to host people who are new to our spaces. There are places there that you'll see that there's lines on the Post-it note where you can write down the names of people that you can pray for. When the opportunity arises, we encourage you to invite, pick up, and bring. Now, I'm going to invite you at this time to pull out that card or to pull out a piece of paper and to consider this final question. This is an opportunity for you to reflect and to pray about invitation. So as you sit quietly, who are 3 people that you can pray for and look for an opportunity to invite to Sycamore Creek this Easter? I'm going to invite you, write down the names of those 3 people and then pray for them. Let's do that. The harder part about an invitation is that it invites a response. Being invited to try running cross country, it demanded a response. Getting asked out on a first date, it demands a yes or a no. Being invited to a sporting event or a concert or on a trip, they all require a response. If you haven't already, or if you haven't yet today, I invite you now to turn to God, to put your trust in God, to drink from God's goodness, to taste and see how much God loves you, to find life through God that is life to the full. It is from our own encounter with God that we then invite others to encounter God. Now, as you invite, let me be honest with you. People are going to say no. You're going to get rejected when you invite, but that's probably as bad as it will be, unless you were a jerk in your invitation, and in that case, well, that's on you. Most likely, though, the worst someone will say to your invitation is no. And in contrast, a yes to participate in a church can literally change the course of someone's life. It might be the lifeline for a struggling marriage. It might be the hope a person needs to get through a season of grief. It might be the community that helps break their isolation and loneliness. It might be the answers to the questions they've been lying awake at night asking. It might be the meaning and purpose that they didn't know they'd been missing. It might be forgiveness and healing for something they've been beating themselves up over. Invitation has the power to change lives. Let's find opportunities this week to invite others to encounter the risen Jesus together this Easter. Hope still rises. Amen.